Hey guys, in this video, I want to show you a handy function for quick debugging. Then we're going to go over equality operators, and thereafter we'll discuss how to use multiple if conditions in one script and how to use nested conditional statements. All right, so I'll start with creating a new script. I'm going to call it equality operators.php. And in this script, I'm going to put an opening PHP tag. And now I want to show you that handy function for debugging. It's called var dump. Essentially, functions in programming are just tools that take some values or non-values and do some useful work. I think that the best way of explaining var dump is just by showing what it does. So to pass a value inside this function, I just need to type it between these parentheses. I'm going to put there, let's say 55. Which is an integer. Now I'm going to save the file and I'll run it. So for me to save a little bit of time, and instead of typing the name of the script in the URL, I'm going to use a cool trick here. In Apache, instead of typing the whole script name, you can just open a directory here, and let me do that. As you can see, here is our script listed here. And if I click on the name of that script, Apache runs the script. As you can see, var dump displayed some information about the value we passed in. In this case, it's data type of that value. Int stands for integer and the value itself. Let me now show you what happens if I use strings and booleans with var dump. So for that, I'm gonna type var dump, then I'll pass Tesla S, and I'm gonna put a semicolon to end the statement, and then var dump false. Now let me run the script again. So here we have this additional information, and as you can see, for strings, var dump also displays their length. This Tesla S string has length of 7, and it uses bool for booleans. Also, the values we pass into any function are called arguments, and we can use expressions as arguments. Let me show you how to do that. I'm gonna clean this up a bit, and I write 2 is identical to. So this is an expression. It uses the identical operator to compare two values. And in this case, PHP executes this little expression first. These two values are identical, so the operator should return true. And that true is then being passed to the var dump function as an argument. Now let me run this script real quick. And here is our boolean true indeed. Also, we can pass variables to var dump. Let me demonstrate it real quick. I'm gonna write identical result. I'm gonna assign the result of this comparison to this variable. Then I'm gonna pass that variable in this var dump function. Let me save the script and run it. And if I refresh this page, you can see that we still have the same output. Also, we can pass multiple values to this var dump function. So I can write something like 2, Spider-Man, and these all arguments will be passed into this function, and var dump will display information about each of these arguments. So let me refresh the page. As you can see, here are the results. Passing multiple arguments is the same as calling this var dump function with each of these values separately. So this is equal to these 3 calls. Now, var dump really starts to shine with arrays and objects, which we'll get to a bit later in this course, but it's convenient for these simple values as well. Now that you know about this var dump function, let's discuss equality operators. For that, I'm going to remove this code, and we'll start from the blank slate. In total, there are 4 equality operators, which are equal, not equal, greater than or equal to, and less than or equal to. We will start with the equal operator. Think of it as a less strict version of the identical operator, which, as you might recall, compares both the value and data type of two operands. So first, let's type var dump, and we pass in the result of the following comparison. 2, which is an integer, is identical to 2, which is a string. And I'm going to end this with a semicolon. On the next line, I'm going to compare the same values, but with the equal operator. Now, if I run the script, you can see that the identical operator in our case gives us false, and the equality operator gives us true. So basically what this means is that the identical operator thinks that these values are not identical, but at the same time, the equality operator treats them as equal. That's because it does the so-called loose comparison. This means that it's not fussy about data types of operands, and it mostly cares about their actual values, and it'll change the data types to make the values match. So in our case, it treats both operands as numbers. Let me show you a few more examples. So with this operator, true is equal to 1. And if I refresh the page, we can see that it returns true as a result. That's because if one of the operands is Boolean, PHP then converts the other one to Boolean 2. This process is also called type juggling. This implies that in certain cases or contexts, such as when using the equality operator, PHP will convert a value from one data type to another. And there are rules on how to convert or cast a value to every data type. Here is a list of such rules for Boolean. According to them, our integer with the value of 1 falls into every other value category, which then gets converted to true. Therefore, since true is equal to true, the operator results in true. Let's verify this. And there you have it. Now let's try to compare true with a string that contains 0. If I refresh the page, we can see that it's false, which may seem a bit weird and unexpected. This happens because following the same rules, a string of 0 converts to Boolean false, and false is not equal to true. Does this look complicated? Because it surely is. There's a lot of contexts and numerous conversion rules. Here is a table of all possible combinations. It's 144 rules in here, and it gets even more complicated because these rules may vary between different PHP versions. It's really hard to keep in mind and respect all of them. This is why using the equality operator can often lead to some unexpected results and bugs in code. And if we consider that in most cases there is no additional benefit in using equality operators and relying on type juggling, then the best practice for these equality operators is just don't use them. I recommend using the identical operator instead. It's way more predictable because it does strict comparison and avoids any type juggling. And instead of not equal, just use the not identical operator. And these two operators, they just combine two comparison in one. Well, let me show you what I mean. For that, I'm going to remove this expression and I'm going to write 2 is greater than or equal to. In this case, this expression will return true. Well, because 2 is equal to 2. And if I run this code, we're going to see this true indeed. Now, if I were to change this to say 3, this expression would still result to true because 3 is also greater than 2. And I'm going to check this real quick. Yeah, true indeed. So basically, this is just a more concise way of writing 3 is greater than 2 or 3 is equal to 2. These two expressions, they are identical. Let me show you that. Nice. And then to apply our best practices to this operator, replace the equal operator with the identical operator. And the same goes with the less than or equal to operator. So it's going to be like this. And to apply the best practice, instead of using this dangerous operator, you could just use it like this and have a bit longer expression, but it's going to be very predictable and quite safe. The bottom line with the equality operators is just avoid using them completely unless you're absolutely sure. Your default choice should be identical and not identical operators for clarity and safety in your code. Now let's transition to discussing how we can use multiple if statements in one script. It's actually a pretty easy thing to do, and for that I'm gonna create a separate script and I'm gonna name it multiple ifs.php. I'll start that script with an opening PHP tag as always. And then I'm going to create a variable that stores energy points. We will start with 70 points. Then I'll create another variable to indicate whether our shield is charged. And I'll use Boolean for that. It's going to be false. So our shield is uncharged. And the last variable is going to tell us whether there's an incoming drone alert. And it's going to be true. Now, based on those variables, I want a few things to happen. And for that, I'm going to use if conditional statements. Now, the first condition would be if player energy is less than 100, then I'm going to echo your energy is below maximum. Find another energy cell. And I'm going to put a BR tag at the end. Else, I'm going to echo you have maximum energy level BR. Now, next, I'm going to write another if condition, which is completely independent from the first one. And it's going to be if shield charged. Then I'm going to echo your personal shield is charged. This will deflect incoming laser shots BR. And let me hide our side panel. Else, if player energy is greater than 50 and there is a drone alert. In this case, I'm going to echo your shield is uncharged, but you will probably survive the incoming attack. BR. Else, and I'm going to echo you are in danger. Charge your shield as soon as possible. BR. And the last statement is if drone alert, then I'm going to echo take cover or disable it. BR. Else, echo we are safe for now and have some time to recover before the next attack. BR. Now I'm going to run the script. And as you can see, there are multiple messages here. That's because each message comes from its own if statement. And we've got 3 independent statements here. That's because all the 3 if statements are independent and PHP runs them separately. So at the end, every if statement here echoes one message. And for example, if I decrease my energy level to 40 and then run the script, you can see that only the second message that corresponds to the second if statement has changed. That's because the other 2 if statements still have the same outcome, but this condition is now false and the else block is executed instead. So ultimately, you can have as many independent if statements in your script as you want in such a manner, and they all will be run separately by PHP. But what if I want to execute the first 2 ifs only in case if there is a drone alert? I can achieve that by moving them in here, and placing one if statement inside the other is called nesting, because at the end of the day, if is just a statement and you can place as many statements as you want between these curly braces. So think of it like layers of an onion. Each layer can contain more layers inside. Again, this or this, PHP considers like a one statement, whether it's only a singular if or it also has else if and else sections too. So now it works like this. If drone alert is true, PHP then executes all the statements inside of these curly braces, and it executes them the same way as it executes any if statements. So it first checks this if and its conditions, and if player's energy is less than 100, then it echoes this message, else it echoes this message, then it proceeds to this if statement and goes through each block as it would do normally, and then it would echo this message. In the case when the drone alert is false, PHP then skips all the statements between these curly braces and just continues to executing the else block. To test that, I'm going to run the script. Good. We still have the same messages displayed because PHP executes these statements. But if I change drone alert to false and then save the script and rerun it, you can see that we're now left with this lonely safe message. This happens, as you know, because PHP skips this block altogether and executes only the else. And you can have as many nesting levels as you want. So I could do something like this and it will still work. So here we have 3 nesting levels, but I would not recommend nesting that deep because it makes it really hard to understand the code and is considered as a bad practice. As a rule for nesting, you might use the following. Don't have more than 2 nesting levels in your script. So basically having this if or third nesting level violates that rule. And there are ways to achieve this kind of behavior, but with less nesting. And I'll show you how to do this later in this course when we will get to functions. And this is pretty much it for today's video. And in the next video, we will discuss strings and more cool ways on how to define them and how to use them. So see you in the next video.